So let's talk about the addictiveness of pornography. We now have the neuroscience evidence that shows us that this is an addictive substance. Now, when you think of addictions, there are actually two categories. There are chemical addictions and behavioral addictions. Now, chemical addictions, that's drugs and alcohol. That's what we're most familiar with. But then there are behavioral addictions that have the same effect on the brain. You're not putting a foreign chemical in your body, but there are behaviors that have the same effect. Probably the most common one we're aware of is gambling addiction. But pornography has the same effect, and we'll talk about that. Now, whenever we look at an addiction, it's sort of like two sides of a coin. On the one side, we have the physical addiction, where the body actually becomes physically dependent on the drug and needs it just to function. On the other side of the coin, we have the emotional side, where pornography is often used to ease some deep emotional pain. Here's where you hear the term often self-medicating. This is what we're looking at. Now let's first talk about the physical side, and I'm going to focus on men right now, but I will address women in this addiction too. So, first of all, we have to understand that men are visually stimulated. You know, we see a girl walk by, we automatically look. That's the way our brains are developed, all right? And the brain can easily pick it out. You know, we could be looking at 1,000 different things. If one of those things is erotic, the brain's going to pick it out and say, hey, pay attention to this. This is important. That automatically happens. And when this occurs, there is a chain reaction of chemical releases in the brain that affect the way a person feels. The first chemical that's released in huge amounts is dopamine. All right. So, and this is released and it affects the brain like the drug. It creates the feeling of excitement, right, and intensifies focus, right? This is what happened. This is the main one. Now, there are other chemicals too. There's another chemical called norepinephrine, right? We call this the snapshot chemical. You know, a lot of men will say that whenever they look at an erotic image, it kind of gets burned into their brains and is there for a long time, right? That's what norepinephrine does. It burns images, it burns in memories. For example, I'm sure you all know where you were and what you were doing when the World Trade Towers got hit, all right? Norepinephrine is the chemical that locks in that memory, all right? Now, norepinephrine also does other things. It activates the autonomic nervous system. So when a man's looking at pornography, his heart will start to beat faster, he will start to breathe heavier, and in fact, he may even begin to sweat. And of course, this chemical just kind of ramps up the brain for sexual activity, sexual release. It's like winding a spring, ready to go. This is where we hear the word sexual tension. A third chemical called delta-phos-B increases the demand for more. It makes you want to go back for more, and also it creates the pathway. You know, when dopamine and delta-phos-B work together, what does it do? It creates this neural pathway that says, okay, whenever you're looking for excitement, go back to porn. This is where you're going. All right. And we'll talk a little more about that too. A fourth chemical is called oxytocin and vasopressin. These are two bonding hormones. These are meant to bond a person, you know, a husband and wife together during the sexual act. But with pornography, what is it bonding the man to? The image on the computer screen. All right. And of course now, with all this chemical reaction and chemical activity going on, a message is sent down the spinal cord to the genitals for sexual arousal. All right. Now with this, there is this physical and emotional sexual tension that develops that can only be relieved with an orgasm. So the man masturbates. All right. Now, of course, with the orgasm, opiate chemicals called endogenous endorphins are released into the brain and provide a sense of euphoria. All right. And of course, after the orgasm, there's this intense feeling of relaxation. But soon after that, there's a crash. What do I mean? Those high levels of dopamine, boom, they drop immediately. And this can really result in feelings of depression, sadness, anger, irritability, and so forth. All right. So this is what's going on. So here I have this train that starts out with the excitement, you know, looking at the image. That leads to stimulation, arousal, tension, orgasm, euphoria, relaxation, and then crash. All right. But this is a powerful drug, and oftentimes, the brain, it really doesn't register that crash. All it registers is this really good feeling, and the brain says, wow, this is great. Let's go back to this. So anytime we're happy, sad, lonely, angry, scared, bored, burnout, frustrated, ashamed, abandoned, whatever, we're going to go back to this because this is the express train to pleasure. That's what goes on there. So this is what's happening. The largest sex organ in the body is the brain. This is where it's all happening. Everything else is simply a reaction to what's going on up here. However, it's that reaction that really confirms this and makes you want to go back for more. But this is what is going on physically in the body.